Fundamentals. This is going to be pretty quick. I'm going to try and do a sort of whistle-stop tour. So I've sectioned it off. Okay, we're going to look at training, nutrition, and recovery. Broad brush. All right, I think I say this in terms of why we're going to cover just the fundamentals. I say this on all my calls, pretty much, that social media now is all we pretty much spend our time on, right? And there's just every expert under the sun telling you this is right, that's right, just telling you different things. And hopefully this is just going to be the basics. Okay, straight to the point. It's probably going to be as reductive as I can make it. Ben will tell you. I mean, he's had as much education as anyone in the room. The physical development and the topic of that is pretty complex as a topic, but I'm going to try and distill it down and make sure it's as basic and kind of actionable as possible. There are some resources as we go through as well. So everyone got their phones on? Yeah, cool, happy. Sick. Okay, so the reason I've left this in there in terms of knowledge is not power. Everyone thinks knowledge is power. Implementation of knowledge is actually the thing we don't want to look at. So as we go through this, obviously note it down. Okay, make sure you're making notes and taking things. But when you go away in the next 2 to 4 weeks, just making sure you actually are implementing these things and thinking about it. If you've got a coach, they should be doing it for you. If you haven't, either look at getting one or do it yourselves. Hopefully this gives you the tools to do that. So physical preparation first. We're going to look at aerobic capacity. The actual definition of aerobic capacity is your body's ability to efficiently utilise oxygen. So that's just a basic broad brush kind of definition of what everyone sort of hears aerobic capacity zone 2. What does it mean? That's the kind of definition. If we split it up into two portions, okay, we've got the pyramid of the aerobic base and VO2 max. So if you look at it like a pyramid, it's pretty basic to understand. So look at base building or zone 2, aerobic stuff. That's going to be the base of your pyramid. The VO2 max or the intense thing is going to be the height of the pyramid. Okay, clearly we need a wide base and a tall pyramid. All right, so everyone wants both. We can't build one without the other. We don't want a really short and stubby pyramid looking like me. And we don't need a really tall, really thin pyramid either. Okay, so we need to build a base and we need to build it up as well. All right. So I'm just going to get some answers from you. What do we think improves our aerobic base? So what kind of training? Anyone? Zone 2? Yes. What does that look like? How do we execute that? Low heart rate, slow. Not really feeling anything. Yeah, cool. So it's like a sweet spot between, you're going to be obviously walking is zone 1, you're pretty much not feeling anything. And then zone 3 upwards pretty much is going to be 70–80% upwards. In the middle of that, we've got that zone 2 stuff, which should be really conversational. So we should be able to hold a conversation. We should be finishing those sessions and being in a sort of an easy state. We should be able to go again, basically. If you've ever done a max effort assault bike workout, you're probably zone 5. You finish that and you're probably not buzzing to go again. All right, so that shouldn't be where you are. Okay, same question on the anaerobic or threshold side. What kind of training do we think improves the VO2 max? Yeah, hill sprints, yeah. So, yeah, the opposite end of the scale, right? So just that max heart rate stuff. Basically, we're looking at, for VO2 max, really sort of 5 to 9 minute efforts. Okay, so nothing super short, but they should be about 80–90% effort. So again, you're finishing that and taking a decent amount of rest to recover, recoup, and go again. So they should be repeatable, but you are going to have to rest in between those sets. And again, as soon we can measure different things, but as soon as the effort level starts to really drop off below 6 out of 10 because you're just too tired, then that's probably not the adaptation we're looking for anymore. So we should probably call that session a day. But essentially, those are the two brackets that aerobic capacity is going to fall into. We're either going to be doing it easy or doing it hard. Typically, the mistake that people make is they run too hard, or whatever the domain is. If we take running, they run too hard for their easy runs and they go too easy on their hard stuff. So they exist in this shitty middle ground that doesn't really get anywhere. Everyone happy with that? That sort of makes sense. So the easy stuff needs to be easy, hard stuff needs to be hard. Again, basic. All right, cool. Strength training. So we're going to again bring this into a couple of different buckets. So lower body, upper body, and core. Again, mega basic. That's not me, by the way. I know you were thinking 500 kilo deadlift. Definitely not me. Okay, lower body. So we've got a couple of movement patterns that we're looking at for lower body. Anyone shout them out? Anyone? Yeah, so in terms of the actual, the pattern, squat, lunge, yeah, okay, you're basically there. I'll give you it. So Bulgarian split squat falls into that. So squat, hinge, lunge, and jump. So in designing a program or looking at a program you're going to follow for military prep or just for any goal that is hybrid or functional or whatever, where we want to kind of perform well, we need to make sure these are included. So we need to be squatting, we need to be hinging, so deadlift, Romanian deadlift. We need to be lunging, we need to be jumping. I'd say Bulgarian split squat, even though it's called a squat, is sort of a lunge variation, so single leg work is obviously massively important. Who here is joining the military just out of interest? Everyone, sick, perfect. Okay, cool. So if we're joining the military, clearly most of the stuff we're going to do is going to be on one leg because we're going to be running, walking, dragging, carrying, whatever. So if we're strong through that movement pattern and we're stable through that movement pattern, it's going to be far more useful rather than always just being on two feet and training that squat pattern, which has its place, but we need both in there as well. Okay. Cool. Natural progression, upper body. Anyone tell me the movement patterns that fall into upper body? Push, pull. Yeah, we're going to section those off a little bit more. So we're going to look at the direction of travel. So horizontal push, horizontal pull, vertical push, vertical pull. Okay. So it's pretty easy to figure out the movements that we're going to look at for these. Okay, they're pretty self-explanatory. But again, to have a well-rounded both physique and athletic capacity, we need both of these or all of these included in the program. And again, if you make it super simple when you're designing like an upper body session, if you just hit these, you pretty much hit most of the stuff. If you bolt on some arms afterwards, happy days. All right, so as long as we're hitting horizontal and vertical, both push and pull, we're happy. And again, we can look at body weight, we can look at the weighted stuff. That's the sort of nuance, but as long as those buckets are hit, happy. And again, once we've got the lower body and the upper body, we're in a good place. We now move on to core. Same thing. So functions of the core, anyone? This one's a bit more difficult. Say again? Yeah, exactly, resist movement. That's the broad brush. We'll sort of break it down a little bit. So anti-rotation, anti-flexion, anti-extension, lateral flexion. So hopefully those words make sense to everyone, but can we think of any movements that are going to achieve anti-rotation? Anyone? Palloff press, yeah, cool. So you're going to hook a band up like this to the rig, hold it here and press out, looking not to rotate the torso. That's the core resisting movement, like you said. Okay, anti-flexion, anyone? Yeah, carries, so when anything's carried in the front or sort of plane, so a kettlebell carry with two kettlebells, a D-ball carry, whatever that is. Anti-extension, anyone other than you? Fucking Rain Man in the back of the room. Anyone? Anti-extension, something like a hollow hold. So if you flip a plank upside down, you're on your back. Okay, you're bringing your shoulders off the floor and your heels off the deck. Probably do one later anyway in a warm-up. But that's going to be your anti-extension. Lateral flexion, you can go lateral flexion or anti-lateral flexion again, resisting movement or creating movement with that. Sit-up fall into any of that? No, probably not. So people will often just think core, sit-ups, or what's going to give me abs? All right, sit-ups. So that isn't actually what the core is for. They're the sort of abdominals that are on the front of the torso, the things you can see, but they're not really doing a fat lot from a performance standpoint or a injury prevention standpoint if we look at it from carrying weight. Cool. Phones out. We scan that. So that's, again, super basic, super broad brush. We're going to look at, this is a program you can hopefully take away and follow. Designed by Mr. Blod. Happy days. Okay, next, nutrition and fueling. Massively related photo to nutrition and fueling there. I just thought it was a good photo, whatever. But that's the next topic we're going to cover. Okay, calories. Again, this is going to be basic. There is massive nuance with nutrition. You talk to two people with PhDs, you're going to get different answers typically. But I'm going to try and, again, just dumb it down and make sure that we can take something away from it. So, calories are the first thing. All a calorie is a measure of how much energy you're consuming. Obviously, relative to your output is going to either put you in a surplus, a maintenance, or a deficit. Is everyone happy with those terms? I don't need to go too much into that, right? Everyone happy with that? Okay, if we want to gain weight, we're in a surplus. We want to continue the same weight, we're in maintenance. Want to lose weight, we need to be in a deficit. The only thing to note with this is just that it's over a 7-day timeline and not a daily timeline. A lot of people think, well, I'm fucking 4,000 calories a day, I'm not putting any weight on. You're probably 4,000 calories a day Monday to Wednesday, and then you're probably 2,000 calories a day. That's what I do anyway. 2,000 calories a day for the rest of it, and then I'm complaining that I'm not gaining any weight. The reason for that is I'm just not consistent enough, and if you add it up over the week, then I'm probably in a deficit or maintenance or whatever. So make sure you're adding them up over a 7-day period and making sure you're consistent across that. And again, you can steal from the weekend to add to the week or do it however you want to do it. But that just gives you a little bit of freedom and a little bit of control over that. How do we get the maintenance then? So calorie calculators online, mega easy. This is just the first one that comes up. So we're all in metric units, hopefully. You just put your details in, it's super easy. So age, gender, height and weight, and then your activity level. The activity level typically is where people get it wrong, okay? And people go, I am massively active because I do 8,000 steps a day. It will give you a pretty, accurate, say, it will either go moderate exercise 4 to 5 times a week. That for me means kind of 45 to 60 minutes of exercise 4 days a week. It will then bring a drop-down menu, and it's like 6 to 7 intense sessions a week plus a physical job. So just make sure you're honest with yourself when you're doing that. I would typically always go, so it'll give you another drop down, say if you want to lose weight, gain weight, whatever. I would always get your maintenance calories from these and then make changes and adjustments from there. Okay, so if you get 2,000 calories for easy maths, I'm just going to bump it up 300 if I need to put on weight. I'm going to cut off 300 if I need to lose any weight, all right? And the way to sort of do this, again, this is a best guess because this isn't going to be absolutely accurate to the calorie because we haven't measured you in a lab. You've just gone on fucking Google and typed some stuff in. So what you do is you track your weight. So if I get 2,300 calories and I want to gain weight, I'll track my weight for 7 days and think, okay, well, am I gaining weight or not? No. Have I been consistent enough with my calories? Be honest with yourself. Yes. Okay, well, I need to probably bring it up again. And it's just a test and adjust process from there. That making sense? Cool. Easy. Okay. You probably need to note this down. I tried to keep this as simple as possible. So the only thing that these macro calculators don't account for, realistically, is kind of white swan events. So a big 10K run, a 10 miler, climbing Snowdon at the weekend, those kinds of things that are massively energy intensive, but maybe aren't written into your weight training. So typically, especially when I calculate calories for clients, it's going to be the steps they give me and the strength training sessions that we're taking into account. What that doesn't account for, again, is the running, 45 minutes extra, 90 minutes extra, whatever they're doing. So this is the formula I use to eat things back. So, again, we're going to take this point by point. So the calories burnt on your watch, whatever that is, Garmin, Apple, doesn't matter. We're going to times that by 0.9 to get 90% of it. The reason we do that is because it's not going to be 100% accurate, your activity tracker. So we can times it by 0.9 to give ourselves a bit of leeway. Once we've got the 90%, so the example would be run 10K, burn 900 calories, 90% of that is 800-ish. We're going to add 800 onto your existing calorie target. Everyone happy with that? Have I confused anyone? No? All good. Perfect. Okay, cool. So either take a photo of that or do whatever you want. And hopefully that can take, you can take that away and figure if you are running or if you are going to do anything that's a shit ton of steps on a weekend, just estimate and add it on. Macros next. Cool. Okay, protein, fats and carbs. We're going to go through these point by point. Anyone tell me the main role of protein? Yep. Go on, one here. Nice, okay, cool. So everyone knows that as the building block. So just to give you again, broad brush, actionable stuff. We typically need 2 grams per kilo of lean body weight. None of you are not lean, so that's just body weight, okay? And it's going to be, for me, I'm 75, so I'll always err on the higher side. I'm going to be 160 grams of protein, okay? And again, it's a range, 160 to 200, probably anywhere between there is fine. But again, that's your regenerative one. So I spoke about calories before being across a 7-day period. This is slightly different in terms of protein is every day. You can't, unfortunately, just save all your protein until Sunday and have about 3,000 grams and you'll be fine. Unfortunately, that's not the case. The only other thing we need to think about with protein is feeding windows. So every sort of 3 to 4 hours, we have a spike in muscle protein synthesis throughout the day. So optimally, if we can get a serving of protein into that window, then we're going to be in a good space. So every couple of hours, typically every meal, 20 to 30 grams of protein, depending on the size of the individual, is going to be optimal. Okay, and again, that's not massively important, but if we're looking to optimize, that's where we want to be. Fats, anyone tell me the slower runs? Yeah? Yeah, can be. So digest a little bit slower. Any other? Go on, let you have it. Nice, yeah, so take care of all your hormones. Typically, it was like the 90s or something when low-fat diets were in vogue. Everyone had fucking mental hormones because they didn't have any fats in their diet. So fats are super important. Obviously, they're further broken down. I'm not going to get into that now. But typically, most macro splits will give you between 70 and 100 grams of fats per day. Carbohydrates, next. Anyone that isn't you, say again. High intensity, yeah? Yeah, so just main source of energy. They're the body's preferred source of energy. So if you are low carb, some people can perform that way, but most people probably aren't going to be super optimal. If you take a CrossFit Games athlete or someone who's fucking really top of their profession in terms of performance physically, typically they're not keto, and there's a good reason for that. They're leveraging carbohydrates to give them energy for sessions. So don't be scared of carbohydrates. Everyone's, thinking carbs are going to make you fat. Does anyone know why people think that? Yeah, so obviously there's a difference, right? Carbs fall into a massive bracket. There's sugars, kind of carbs. You can use those closer to sessions to get them burnt up. Anyone know why? Any other reasons that carbs would be related to? So insulin's like a bit of a misnomer with that kind of thing. So any others? Yeah. So excess calories will turn into fat cells. That's where, so again, this is where the confusion comes in. Second. Yeah, so that's one thing. So again, if we're controlling for calories, that shouldn't matter, right? So if we're just getting our calorie target and hitting those things shouldn't matter. I'm going to tell you it because we'll be here all day. So effectively, carbs bring with them 3 grams of water per gram of carbs. Okay, so if we increase carbs by 300 grams, it's a kilo of water we're putting on, all right? So when people drop carbs away from their diet and they went from 300 grams to 0, of course, now they've lost a fucking kilo of water every day. So over 7 days, you get these mental shreds, mental kind of, I've lost 8 kilos in a week. Great for marketing, not so good for fat loss because it's not fat you're losing, it's water. Makes sense? Yeah?
First, let's go back to the protein. So if you're going off the kilogram body weight, say whenever I do a hard session or a hard day, I need to uptake my protein. Is that, or should you keep it steady? Is there something to be said for adding extra protein if you're on a harder day?
Should be steady, I think.
Should be steady all the way through.
Yeah, so the sort of research is 1.6 to 2.2 grams per kilo of body weight. So if you're doing 2, you're already at the higher end. All right, so you don't really need to increase it, no. All right? Yeah. Sorry, say it again. There was a drop barber. Not really. So again, this is something that is pushed by kind of social media. It's more of a fucking marketing ploy to confuse people and get people onto their, low carb recipe books or whatever. But like glycemic index is a real thing, yeah. So you have high glycemic, low glycemic index carbs. But realistically, again, if you are controlling for both lean mass and calories, then you're going to be in a good place, all right? And obviously there's a kind of underlying narrative that 80% of this food should be coming from good whole sources, oats, potatoes, whatever you've got, and not ideally like Mackey's chips and Haribo's. But again, they have their place. Haribo's are great if you're in the middle of a 30-miler, okay? You don't want a fucking bowl of sweet potato mash in the middle of a 30-miler, right? So there is time and a place for sugary carbs. It's just about putting them in the right place, okay? Cool, next. Scan this for me, please. Hopefully you can save that to your files or whatever and have a little look at that afterwards, okay? Everyone got that? Just wait for you. Cool. Sleep and recovery, Everyone happy with that? Can they spot blood? Anyone? No? I'm standing on someone's boots, right at the back in the corner there. I can't touch the floor. Fantastic. All right, cool. First thing we need to talk about is sleep. We've got all these buckets that sleep's going to affect. So we've got duration, quality, habits, cycles, tracking, and routine. We're going to look at all of these individually, but again, I'm going to try and do it fairly quickly. So duration. Anyone know ideally how much we should sleep? Yeah. Yeah, 7 to 9 hours a night is great. Obviously, 8 hours falls into that, so 8 hours if you can. If we can't sleep 8 hours, then we need to leverage quality. The way we do that is our habits around sleep. So whether that's in the morning or in the evening, we need to think about our almost sleep hygiene, you could kind of term it. So how many hours before bedtime do we sort of turn off our screens? How many hours before bedtime do we stop drinking caffeine, and stop eating food? Does anyone know the effect caffeine has on sleep? It keeps you awake. Fantastic. Yeah, it does. Anyone know how long it lasts in the system?
Half-life?
Yeah, the half-life. Yeah, so it has about a half-life of sort of 6 hours, and a quarter life even longer than that. So if you are having caffeine throughout the day, if you can have a curfew of sort of 2 o'clock, 1 o'clock, depending on how sensitive you are to it, you're going to put yourself in a better state. Oftentimes, people at 5 p.m., 4:30 p.m., I'm going to get through the last half an hour of work, I'm going to have a fucking double espresso. And that's obviously going to affect your sleep. Even in Europe, I don't really understand what's going on, but you know, they're having like dinner at 10 p.m. and smashing espressos. Not sure what's happening there, but maybe they've just got a massive tolerance for it. But again, most people will say, oh, well, you know, caffeine doesn't affect me. For that to be true, you know, it's pretty unlikely. I think it's like, for caffeine to not affect you that much, it's either you've had a shitload of it, so you've built up a massive tolerance, or you're just so nullified to the effects because, you haven't slept properly for probably months or years. You don't know actually what a good sleep feels like. And who do you think the worst person to ask whether they're underslept is? It's the individual that's underslept, isn't it? So if you think, oh, I'm fucking good to go, I've been well rested, don't need to sleep more than 6 hours, you probably just don't know what a good sleep feels like, all right? Cool. Tracking, anyone got like a Whoop or anything else they track stuff on? Yeah, Apple Watch is pretty crap, you're right. Fantastic. Okay, yeah, so, well, that brings me to my point. Kind of tracking is good, and it's a good tool to use, but it's not always going to be 100% accurate. How can it be? You know, it's a thing on your wrist, which is why we've got to use other metrics. And it's a good thing to look into, but just don't attach all of the worth to that number on the screen. So it can probably inform the habits you want to influence your sleep with, because if you again have caffeine a couple of hours before, you then look at your Whoop and you're like, oh fucking hell, 2% recovered this morning, then hopefully the next day you're going to use that as a little bit of a behavior change to stop having that caffeine. So hopefully it can drive a little bit of behavior change, but again, don't just be too dogmatic with it. In terms of routine, before you go to bed, like I mentioned, limiting light is going to be massive. Making sure that the room is cool, so open your windows, certainly in the summer, is also going to be massive. And then I think in the morning, if you can get up and look into getting into some daylight, that is always going to help you out as well. It just sets a little bit of a physiological timer to then release the right hormones 16 hours later, okay? So making sure that that's, again, in your routine to leverage the quality of sleep, and in an ideal world, getting 7 to 9 hours from a duration perspective. Happy with that? Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure whether it helps you sleep. I think it does influence the actual intake of oxygen, and how much the quality of that oxygen is good. So from what I understand, I'm not an expert in this, nasal breathing creates sort of a filtration system to clean the air before it goes into your lungs. If you breathe through your mouth, it's probably not going to be the case. Also, if you breathe through your mouth or sleep with your mouth open, you're more likely to snore. If you snore, your sleep quality goes down, or you're going to wake yourself up or whatever. So that's probably not ideal either. But if you want to take your mouth, you can do. Look like an absolute psycho in bed. I'll probably do that in a couple of months when I get into that. Okay, so this is the kind of recovery pyramid. Okay, so again, look at the bottom of that pyramid, just talked about it, sleep and downtime. Top of the pyramid, fads, whatever that is. I don't know what's in at the moment, but whatever's getting pushed with social media, just try and ignore it and stick to the bottoms. So sleep and downtime, nutrition, hydration. 80% of the recovery is going to come from these things, all right? We're always looking at, oh, I'm going to get a fucking sports massage. And 9 times out of 10, you're getting the sports massage late on in the day, cutting into your sleep time to go and get the massage, and it's like, it just doesn't make any sense. So if you can look at it through this lens and be quite disciplined with sleep and recovery when you're in a period of overtraining or overreaching, then that's going to be most beneficial. What do most people do? Upside down, right? So most people fad straight away, first of all, EMS, massage, compression, then they might think about sleep, then they might think about nutrition and hydration. So just make sure you're not being that guy, and make sure you are leveraging the basics before you get into any sort of cold water immersion or whatever it is, because that comes under fads as well, I guess, right now. But the cold water immersion has its place for sure. But if you're sleeping 5 hours a night, come on, right? It's this thing we need to look into first. Cool. Like I say, quick time. All right, cool. That's everything from me today on this front. So, any questions about any of that or about anything? Yep.
Yeah, just about the cold water immersion.
Mm.
So, is there a window where you should be doing that after you do exercise, or is it like any time in that day?
Yeah. So, depending on what the objective of that cold water immersion is, you can do it in the morning if you're thinking about it's a discipline thing that makes me feel really good throughout the day. If it's from a recovery standpoint, then you need to be careful with how close to exercise you're doing it. So if it's a session that's looking to drive hypertrophy or strength and muscle building, you want to leave it 4 hours, really, because you need the inflammation. And what the getting in the cold water does is cut that inflammation off. So it really can dampen the effects. So if you leave it 4 hours, then you're still in a good spot. If you do it before bed, it can often influence sleep because you're now G'd up. So I would do it in the morning. Typically that's when I'm most stiff or whatever, so I can get out of the cold water and actually feel alive again. So that's what I'll probably look into. Does that make sense? Cool. Yeah.
Does it matter when you do that?
As in when in the day?
How long after the exercise?
I mean, it would do, yeah, but it's less important than actually just doing it on the macro. So again, just to not confuse things and make things real simple, as long as calories throughout that day are hit, then we're still going to be in maintenance, surplus, whatever. And then when you go to sleep that night, you can utilize that energy to recover. All right. Anything else? Yep.
Is it bad to eat before sleep?
Say again.
Is it bad to eat before sleeping?
So there's multiple thought processes on this. I think it can be because your body's thinking about something else rather than thinking about getting ramped down for sleep. However, there's a reality there where some of us need to get calories in, some of us have been working all day and then trained and then have to eat. So if it's a choice between not eating to hit those calories, hit the protein, or just having a little bit of a curfew, like, oh, it's now 2 hours before I go to bed, I'm not going to eat, then I would probably choose the eating path, right? Because then you're going to have at least the raw materials to recover throughout that night. Happy? I always like protein before bed's a better thing to try and leverage because it's not super energy dense, and it's going to give you a little bit of a influx before you have a big fasted period.
I find that I'm having to eat later at night, but then it's making me feel tired in the morning.
It's making you feel tired in the morning.
Waking up, I can tell the difference. Like if I've eaten late at night, I feel a lot more tired in the morning.
Why do you have to eat late at night?
Just because I'm working, and then by the time I get home, and then I've tea, gym, get back home.
Could you take food to work?
I just eat
Eat all
all day.
day. Okay, cool. So something I'll probably look at is how energy dense is your breakfast and lunch. If you can make those a bit bigger or maybe increase the proportion sizes there, then you have to eat less at dinner time or late on. It means you're not having, 2,000 calories before you try and get your head down. That's where I would probably look at, again, just increasing those serving sizes elsewhere.
What is, say, for example, like a 30-mile, the food you eat, like,
Mm.
you choose, how does it work? In the canteen, like,
In the canteen or during, or both?
like, I don't know, how does it,
Yeah, so
if you wanted potatoes or something, or
yeah, you'll have you'll have some choice.
Or is it like
30 miler before the 30 miler. What are you eating? What did you eat? Yeah, so it's basically a fry up. Essentially, is what you can have. It's not that there's not that much choice, unfortunately. But again, choosing what you can in terms of loading up on the hash browns or the carb dense stuff is going to be smart. When you get into the actual event, you're basically just shoved Cornish pasties and bananas. I couldn't actually look at a banana for about 10 months afterwards. So yeah. Yeah, it's proper traumatized. You have about 5-minute break every like 5 miles or something. 6 miles. Every 6 miles, you have about a 5-minute break, and you have to consume about 800 calories in that 5 minutes. It's horrific. That's probably one of the hardest bits of the 30 miler, to be honest. It's like more of a scran challenge than anything else.
I think like I literally had 2 pies with 2 bananas, like a sandwich.
Nice. Very northern, that. Sounds like a delicacy up it. Any more? Yeah. No. Maybe at the end. Oh, maybe. Potentially. Unless you had a rogue training team with a fucking hip flask. Yes, lads. Maybe. I don't know. But probably not optimal. Anything else? Any others? No? Go on.
Do you have choice in the mess when you're like, what sort of choices they're eating?
There is choice, yeah.
It's just like a school canteen.
Yeah, pretty much. It's there'll be like 3 choices for your protein, 3 choices for your carb, whatever, then veg. To be fair, it could be worse now. Who knows? What's it like now? You're in the RAF. You get fucking 5-star. 5-star I can't.
What I would say is like once you're at Livingston and you're going through Nod training, you'll find what works best for you. So you'll have like salad bars, you'll have get bars. I used to smash paninis at lunch, and then whatever in the mornings you just try and eat as much as possible in about a 5-minute window. So wherever you can get down your neck. I think you go off fry-ups pretty quick.
I did, yeah. I can't eat one now. No. I think you're right. You do find what works. I think it's about probably getting as much energy dense food in a small amount of time. A lot of times you're not worried about eating, or you don't feel like eating because you're stressed or you know whatever's happening. And so apple crumble was fucking getting smashed for me. So yeah, it just depends. Whatever's going to be energy dense and giving you energy, then dig out on that.
So it's not worth worrying about proteins.
Not when you're there, really. I mean, if you can, absolutely, yeah. But it's going to be a calorie game, innit? You know, you're not looking at being Mr. Olympia at the end of that. But you do need to repair. So if you can get protein, obviously do it. Yeah.
I know military as a whole is a bit behind the times. Is prehab or stretching, is that becoming a thing, or is it just you do what you're told? Is it part of the system, or is that something to do yourself?
I'd imagine it probably depends on the PTI you have. If the PTI is a bit more progressive and is with the times and maybe gives a fuck about you not getting injured, then yeah, it'll probably be pretty good. Yeah, it's massive, yeah. But a lot of times it becomes almost a joke, doesn't it, about stretch off in the showers. When you finish a massive speed march, they'll be like, oh, lads, just stretch off in the showers. It's probably changing, yeah, has it? Okay.
Yeah, so like, well, I know when I've got recruits and stuff now, I've got a massive emphasis on like the stuff that you just done, the bed, and injury prevention sort of stuff. And rather than just absolute crashing, there should be a bit of understanding and learning behind it. But if you do get injured, there's no better place to get injured than in the military, because the standards that ERI's physios are and stuff like that are second to none, and the facilities you get are incredible. Even if you look at private healthcare, one of my friends did their ACL and a meniscus rupture, and they had an MRI within.
What point do you decide the injury is bad enough that you need to go down to medical? A lot of people talk about like just reasoning like you're going to be injured. At what point do you go, is the actual hold me back? I need to sort of swallow my pride and get down to it.
Yeah, I mean, there's a difference between injury and pain. You know, people are going to have pain and niggles and that sort of thing. That does happen. If it's stopping you doing something, then obviously that's a no-go. Depending on, maybe looking at what you've got ahead. If you've got a week where it's a little bit easier, you've got loads of lectures, maybe give it a week and might sort itself out. Maybe not if it's a broken leg, but something a bit more low level. If you've got some time, then fine. If you're straight on the commando test, then it's probably not ideal. And again, even on that, looking at how long you have left, how long have you got to grizz it for? Is it 4 weeks? It might be worth it. Are you fucking week 8? Then it's probably not going to be ideal. So it's a cost-benefit analysis all the time and figure out whether it's worth the risk or whether it's not. Oftentimes, if you're putting your mature hat on, it's probably not ideal. You probably should go to medbay whenever you can. But there is an element of it's an attritional process. There's going to be niggles and injuries in there. But again, the stronger you are beforehand, the less hopefully you have to deal with that. Yep.
I think going into your training, it's more optimum to be carrying a bit more sort of body weight, a bit more mass, and sort of going in as like a racing snake, sort of not much fat on you. I think there's a benefit either way.
There's probably a benefit to be somewhere in the middle. So I think you put on mass until it's going to create an issue for your aerobic capacity. So until you're going to start slowing down or getting really, really heavy for bodyweight stuff, then be as strong as you can. But yeah, there is a balance where you can push too far and then your fitness starts to suffer. So it's a balance, and again, it's about figuring out what the optimal weight for you as an individual is. Like I say, I weigh 67, 68, I weigh 78 to 76 kilos or whatever it is, fluctuating. Back in training, I was like 65. I'm much more capable now in terms from strength and an aerobic capacity standpoint because it's a good weight for me. If I got to 85 kilos, I'd probably be too cumbersome. All right, so it's about figuring out for you where that is, and it probably comes down to a little bit of like lean tissue as well. If you're carrying a shitload of excess mass, then probably not ideal because you have to carry that around with you. But again, like you say, you don't want to be a racing snake because you also have to carry other people. So when I was 65 kilos, carrying people who were 80 kilos was shit. so yeah.
On that point,
Yeah.
should I just go into training with the mindset I'm going to lose a lot of muscle mass and a bit of weight?
Yeah, probably don't be precious about that. Yeah, so your physique's going to suffer for sure. It's a short-term loss, isn't it? You're not going to have to do that for ages. The training you're doing isn't going to be 4 sets of 12 bicep curl and then loads of protein. It's going to be really destructive. And because of that, you ain't going to be building loads of muscle.
To get mentally prepared.
100%, yeah, exactly. You're going to have to prepare yourself for that and manage that expectation around. A lot of people will maybe have the romanticised view of, okay, I'm going to join the Marines and be fucking 8 foot wide. Probably not going to be the case. You probably finish looking the worst you've ever looked. But then after that, you have the ability to lean into your physical stuff and you can go and focus on op massive after that.
Would some place any like emphasis on strength training and stuff? I know I've seen bits and bobs of the army like building like compact lifts into their stuff.
I don't think Lympstone do at the present, do they? No. So the Marines don't. Again, like you say, lagging behind the times. The Army have started to input it. So the RAF, I think, yeah. So a little bit of strength stuff, kind of compounds and single leg work, all the rest of it. The Marines are a bit behind the times, I think, with that. Again, I've spoken about this a lot, but it's a line between changing what's worked for so long, and then actually inputting the science and inputting the new stuff in there. So there's a place for it, but at the same time, the product that they get at the end of 36 weeks is always pretty good. So, why are they going to change it? There's not really a reason for them to. I think until they start to look at how many injuries they get and maybe how they could mitigate those, then they'll probably change their minds. But like you say, a lot of it's just they're stuck in their ways.
You know, when you're in training, you come out for like a few days. Will they give you like a structured plan to take away, or do you just kind of need to work on your fitness yourself?
I think again, it depends on the PTI. You will normally get given something, yeah. But again, it depends on probably where you are in training as well, depending on how in depth that is, how long the leave period is. But a lot of times, you just need to go back and rest because your body's so fucked. I mean, if you get 2 weeks off, how much phys can you actually do that's going to be productive? Probably not that much. You probably need to just recover and then go back in a good state. So it's,
Do you recommend just like taper off a little bit, but just keep a little bit?
you should keep going, yeah. I mean, a lot of people will just burn the ships and go absolutely on the piss for 2 weeks, and it's just not ideal. We had someone come back for a bottom field pass out and get like 3 times the allotted time, like 28 minutes for the fucking assault course. He was throwing up everywhere. He hadn't done any phys over Christmas. That's not probably ideal. So coming a little bit left of that is probably where you want to be. But yeah, you want to go and do some phys. You want to be moving around, being active, being mobile, maybe doing mobility, all that sort of stuff, low level. Treat it like 2 weeks of kind of deload where maybe intensity is fairly high, but volume is really, really low. All right.
Do you recommend taking creatine during that time? Or
Yeah, why not?
would it have a,
Yeah, it probably wouldn't have a massive effect, but it's not going to hurt you.
how many grams would you say like per day?
5 grams a day every time with creatine. There's not really much point in taking more or loading it or anything like that. Creatine should be 5 grams a day unless you're massive, and then you're going to want to take a bit more. But it's just going to saturate the muscle. So if you're taking it consistently enough, eventually it's going to saturate the muscle. All right. Anything else? Cool. Happy days. Same again, quick break, just dress over and ditch your notepads basically. And just come back over and we'll